Hello, welcome back to the channel. And I just turn off my microphone without any knowledge because I like to press buttons. That's what I should do. I should make this channel as a rage bait. I don't even know how to say it properly. A rage bait. That's what I should do. I should make a rage bait titles. What do you reckon? Anyway, welcome to the channel, guys. I usually yap and make vlogs sometimes, but mostly yap this 2025. Just because it's easier to make because vlogs takes a lot of editing, and for some reason I've been overpowering myself with matcha, overdosing myself with matcha and caffeine. So I'm capable of doing a lot of yapping when I'm high on caffeine by matcha. I also do a bunch of stuff on the internet. You can check out my links on the description box below and see my works from my past self. And if you just want to hear a lot of yapping and companionship and spending a little bit of time with me this year, come and join this channel, and we'll just be spending a lot of talking this year. Anyway, today I want to talk about what happens when your brain has fully developed, or at least your prefrontal cortex has developed? Because I'm a neurodivergent person, and apparently, if you're a neurodivergent person, your prefrontal cortex that usually develop uh, for normal people by the age of 25, 26 doesn't really develop until you are 35 or 36. So up until then, you are basically still a child, which makes it very difficult to navigate the world as an adult. But one thing that is great though, when your prefrontal cortex has fully developed, is the fact that you can still experience a lot of what your teenage self used to experience, but without actual consequences, because you don't make decisions based on your emotions anymore, because your brain, your front brain has developed. Let me like give you an example. Maybe like a decade ago, I was really depressed, and I was still like a mess, catatonic depression and all that, anxiety, and it's just such a mess because my mom died, and I was just in a full grieving mode, and completely forgotten that I was autistic. But back then, like 13 years ago, autistic and adult female was not really a thing. Back then, it was still called Asperger's, so that's how I found out like it was Asperger. It wasn't like autistic like it is now. So, and I completely forgotten that I had it because in the same year, my mom died, and so I kind of fully abandoned that self exploration mode. So, like a few years after that, I was still in a huge mess of that incident, and in the midst of that, in the midst of just these deep and dark places, I basically scourged the internet and managed to find an online community of streamers. So wasn't on Twitch or anything. So this was just like a independent Twitch, no, not independent Twitch, but independent like streaming sites and stuff. And one of those people were like one of the streamers I got really attached to, like mentally and emotionally attached to. And I was just doing my usual limerence type of attachments and being really obsessed and having a fangirling, really unhealthy obsession moments. And I could tell myself, like, going down this really dark, unhealthy road. I felt like I was unable to stop myself because I felt that was the only emotional support that I could manage to have, like this parasocial relationship that I have about with this international no with this streamer that is on your screen every day, and it's really easy to develop that, especially if you're in a very vulnerable position. But the difference is this time around, I was in my 30s. I was not in my teenage years anymore. So my brain, my prefrontal cortex has developed somewhat. And if I were still a teenager, I would probably have make a different decisions. But even though I was still in this vulnerable position, right? Like I could see like they were just saying things like that gaslight you as a person. Things like, they would, like, later on, I learned that when they were in my DMs, the way they speak would be very different than the way they would speak on stream. The way they would speak on stream would portray the image of they're a good boy, they're like a good man, and like they are so straight laced type of person. But when they're in the DM, the vibe is very much like, "Hey, girl," like a player type of thing. And I feel like as an adult, it's so weird because I was still vulnerable and I was still governed with my emotions and stuff. I would still like go into this teenage mentality of like, "Oh, do they like me? Oh, they notice me. Oh my God, it's so exciting." And they'll be very flirty, and then they would say, "Oh, I'm a nice guy." I mean, like, I just have like so many crazy exes. And the difference is between when I was younger and when I was going through this as I'm in my 30s was that that kind of, declared a red flag in my brain when he said that. He said things like, "Oh, I just have crazy exes." And also when people started saying to him, "Oh, people think that I'm a player." Like, a lot of girls said I'm a player, but no, I've been in a lot of like, I've been only in a few long terms, mon- monogamous relationships. I'm not the player type. All the things that men said, and and you wanted to believe them because you're in a very vulnerable state of emotional circumstances, and your brain is not braining properly usually. But because I was in my 30s by this stage, I was just like, yeah, okay. um, this kind of things, all the things that he said was basically just red flagging in my brain. So when they're trying to approach like individual women in the chat room and have like, actual individual probably conversations in private, that's what I was thinking anyway. I'm like, oh, these people probably are trying to do this so that they can pull some women in and then, have individual conversation with them. And I guess being my 30s kind of saved me a lot, because I remember there were a few women that were still really young, like in their 20s, ended up going to where he lives and going to the country that he lives. Um, just because, like, they probably talk in private and stuff, and they're probably invited, that his demeanor is probably saying that I'm available so you can chase me. So I've seen like a couple of women that basically flew to where the streamer was. And I could see, like, from the stream, like, he wasn't really pleased with this woman, and he wasn't pleased playing host in real life. But it was so different when he was still like on stream by himself. He was just really friendly and be really open and have this kind of facade that he is such an incredible host and a very friendly person. But when you see them interact in real life with women or with, a female relative or things like that, it always comes across like he doesn't like women in general, like he really hates them. And I guess, like, because I was already a grown woman by the stage, I would still entertain the fun aspect of entertainment, which was like the flirty side, talking about, just friendly stuff, like, and just milk the really giggly feelings inside of me. But I don't particularly want to cross any boundaries. It's like so weird. Like, at one time, I remember in a stream, he would just like, I'm just a random person on a chat, all right? Like, I'm not like know this person in real life, so it's not like it's a friend that I've known for a long time and we flirted for a long time. So no, this was like purely, we haven't even had like a good interaction or any kind of lengthy conversation whatsoever. So this is all parasocial. And so I remember like one time in a stream, uh, they would tell me like, you should come over here, come to this country, like wherever they are. They're not in Australia. So I'm like, no, I'm not stupid. I basically, like, I didn't scream it at them, but I'm just like writing it in chat. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I mean, like, why would I? Not that I could afford it, and I couldn't afford it now as well. And of course, like, I have a bunch of other issues that I need to work out. But I mean, like, I think this is what the difference is. Like, while other women were flying into where he was back then, and using their own money, saving up, and having this fantasy that, this person would be the same as he is personality wise on stream, and as he would be in real life. I don't have that fantasy at all. I am fully aware that, this is a fantasy, like the things that people see on screen, especially when you are trying to fuel up on a lot of parasocial relationship. You're trying to build, like, you're streaming as a place where you have what, you probably are kind of aiming to pull a partner through, the streaming. Is basically like a not a matchmaking, but I guess it's a dating profile, as a dating broadcasting system. It's I'm not I'm willing to be entertained, and with the idea that, oh yeah, they're playing this role play as a online boyfriend. Like when you go and you adore your K-pop idols, and sometimes they play that parasocial relationship, like back in like first gen or second gen, as if that, yeah, we are definitely are a couple, and that's why a lot of fans were like trying to unalive themselves when one of the idols or one of the actors that they've been idolizing got married or have a girlfriend. And it's like, that's really unhealthy. So I guess, like, this type of relationship kind of fall onto that type of parasocial classification. But even though I was emotionally a mess, and even though I was like so depressed, because my brain was almost finished developing by that stage, my prefrontal cortex, I wasn't buying into the whole footy side, the whole thing. Maybe I wasn't vulnerable enough to receive that, but I feel like my brain was protecting me so much. Like, it was just alerting me all the red flags that was being told by themselves from their own mouth. The fact that, they're calling uh, their exes crazy, that's really bad. And also the fact that, they were gaslighting all these women, saying that, oh, these women are basically telling me that I'm a player. I'm not a player. And I feel like my instinct always listened to the other women. Like, my instinct at that time was like saying, I should listen to the women in this stage, because I feel like this is a man that is basically very angry when it comes to giving to women. It's as if that women has done something wrong to him, and as if that he is owed by women. And I also witnessed a lot of unscrupulous behaviors, as like he always backed his bros, and he always vouched for his bros. But all the bros, like all the men that were basically hanging out with them, were not really acting well. Like, the one that he vouched for were men that are not really good in my book, but the ones that are good, he didn't even look twice. So I was just like, my brain being a neurodivergent, I think, is also very beneficial in this particular scenario, because I was like, I make decisions based on logical and practical data and evidence, even though my emotions wants me to ignore all of them. That's one thing I'm incapable of doing as a neurodivergent person. It's like, no, even though I have these kind of feelings, even though I have feelings that I want to override these thoughts and these facts, I am incapable of doing that, even though my emotion wants me to kind of say, oh, those are not true. I can't. Apparently I can't. I'm like, no, like all these decisions that they have made that I have seen, I could not override those. It's like the way they treated women and the micro expressions that they have when they talk about certain women, even if they're related to them or if they are like this particular attitudes towards women was just very overwhelming in my brain, that basically say this particular person really don't like women that much. It actually leads to a conclusion that the misogynistic um, point of view is actually very apparent, but because the facade and personality wise is very friendly, and some people consider them to be very well groomed and well mannered. It's quite hard to kind of see the glitches, and but when you are in your 30s and you almost finish developing your prefrontal cortex, you trust yourself a lot more, and I think that also developed when you become when your brain is become really developed. You're not doubting yourself as much. You are not as easy to be gaslighted as you would be when you were in your 20s. So I think like this was when I realized, oh, okay, I can enjoy this fantasy role playing parasocial relationship that is being trying to be tricked on me without actually getting sucked into it in reality. And I find that to be comforting to some degree. I still go through a lot of, parasocial, uh, hurtful emotions, like, um, my emotion would still feel like, oh, they're ignoring me, or that's feeling hurtful, oh, they didn't reply to me, oh, that must be really uh annoying. I get really annoyed that they don't. Do they hate me? Oh my god. I still go through a lot of that. But at the same time, there is this bigger picture and also this bigger knowing that all of this is not real. And I guess like once you're I think like that's when I knew like maybe I was coming out of something. I was coming out of a certain haze that some people never really got out of. Was like when I kind of like emphasize like, no, it's actually true. Like if they want something, if people want something, they usually pursue it. If they want something, they usually would like if they know they can make something real, they would usually do the steps and take the procedures that they need to do in order to have something to realize it. And I think if something is real, especially when in your 30s, because like when I was in my 30s, right? I'm in my 40s now. But when I was in my 30s, there was this lady that was in her 40s back then. So we were like a not a whole entire generation, but we have an age gap kind of friendship. And even though she was in her 40s, she was still doing the limerence of a teenage girl. Like, oh my gosh, he looks at me. We had a connection. He looked at me and he was really nice. He said two words to me today. And and then she would kind of just hold on to that two words that happened 7 years ago as if that they still had a connection, that they would build this whole life together. And I'm thinking, no, have you spoken to them recently? And I guess like witnessing that is also making me uh, realize that we really have to base on actions that are true today, not action that is just in our head. It's like, is there anything that actually happened right now, that is there anything happens right now that we can rely on as a basis of as a basis of a relationship or basis of friendship or anything. I felt like by the stage where you are 30s, you can't, like, in this case, like my friend in her 40s was like, if you can't have any type of evidence basically that says you're in a relationship, for example, if you're trying to, like, if you can't count on any, if no you it's like, imagine you have to apply for a spouse visa, right? Imagine that. Imagine if you have to apply for a spousal visa. Would your relationship have evidence enough to apply for that? Unless you have enough evidence to basically say that you are in a relationship when you need a spousal visa, then you probably don't have a relationship. And even that, like, even when you do have like correspondences that you can use as a basis of your relationship, even that is still doubtful whether that is a real relationship or not, whether their feelings towards you were genuine or not, right? If you watch a lot of you know because on TikTok sometimes I get like 90 days fiance, and in one of those clips that I have on my FYP in the 90 Days Fiancé, that had this guy that basically tried to get on to this lady boy in the Philippines, I think. And he tried to get with her to try to get like her Filipino residency visa, but the girl really actually want to go to the US to get a US green card, but he was trying to run away from the US because he had a lot of debts, and he had also a child support payment that he doesn't want to pay. So he want to kind of go to the Philippines to run away from all of that. And he was just declaring all sort of, lies to gain trust from the woman, or this transsexual woman, to basically tell her that he loves her and everything. But the minute that he doesn't get what he wanted, he became quite violent in his wordings and his attitude. He didn't really show the aggressiveness out loud or like out in the open, but he would use like a lot of like covert aggression, like playing with a knife, or playing with a knife and stabbing you know a table with that type of thing. And and as soon as he was displaying that, like, the girl basically realized that, oh my god, this person is dangerous. So she basically just canceled the engagement, right? Which she probably was really correct in that one. But I feel like in this particular example, even when you probably do have kind of evidence of like people saying that they like you and they love you and they want to spend a lot of time with you, even in this particular case, they still can be lying. So I guess like words don't mean anything unless you have evidence of proof or of behaviors that saying otherwise. I guess like that's the benefit of being like 30s and also having your prefrontal cortex developed, is the fact that you can always rely on evidence, and you can make decisions based on your thoughts processes and your reality and your brain, rather than based on your emotions and your insecurities. I guess that's one thing I really like about being neurodivergent and being autistic, is the fact that I don't make decisions based on my feelings. Although maybe I should be a lot more to for like good things, but in this particular case, I felt like I dodged a lot of bullets. Like, not that I had the financial to do it as well, but imagine if I were like still in my 20s and still being really vulnerable with this kind of behaviors. I would probably just spend a lot of money and, fly over to wherever this guy was and trying to be, very subservient towards them. Yes, being in your 30s also had a lot of benefits towards that. It's like, yeah, of course, like, you can see like this person is probably a community person, meaning like a lot of women would share him, but not a lot of women would take him on board as a partner, a long term partner. But of course, like people change. I'm not saying like this is his only personality. This was like a decade ago, so it probably won't be true now. Maybe he has changed, and maybe a lot of things has happened since then. And this is also a stranger on the internet. It's not going to be like someone that is in real life and having uh actual kind of real life consequences. But for people who are vulnerable, people like me who are isolated, and people like me who don't have real life friends, this type of parasocial relationship can be quite dangerous if they come from people who are not, have a pure motive. But anyway, that's it for this video, I guess, guys. I've been rambling on for too long. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone. Also, just a reminder, ING Australia has 125 bonus cash for new customers. So if you want to check it out and see how you can apply and get that free $125 before 31st of March 2025, you can go to the link in the description box below. You can just scroll all the way down and you can see the free $125 bonus cash. And there is a link. You can see the steps that you need to take if you want to make that money and see if that applies to you. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you later. Bye, everyone.